survive. Because right now, between shifting tariffs, unpredictable volumes, port congestion, and rising cost of fuel, a lot of people are busy but not profitable. And that's exactly what we are going to discuss today. And today, my guest is someone special. I have an amazing bestie in freight who has not just talking about logistics but actually in it every single day. Sonne Kahlon, founder of WiDO Logistics. Thank you so much for joining me today and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lita. Pleasure being here with you.
Yes, Sonny, I know you guys are asset-based company with over 300,000 square feet of warehouse, right? Trucks, chassis, handling everything from port to door. So please tell me, how did you end up into logistics?
Well, I've always kind of been in logistics, on and off. Even in 2007 and prior to that, we had a refrigerated OTR trucking company that we operated 11 Western states. Then after that, 2008 bubble, when everything kind of went downhill, the same situation that we're kind of seeing now happened then. And at that point, we decided to kind of shift gears and, get into something else instead for a while. And but once logistics is in your blood, it remains in your blood forever. So in
Yeah.
2013, I decided to then get back into it, but this time, with more knowledge and power. And so that's how we kind of got back into trucking. Then in 2018, we introduced warehousing as well as part of our services.
Nice. So what did the early days look like when you restarted? Like the real version people don't see.
The early days were pretty tough, actually. My story is kind of like yours. We're a husband and wife team. We believe it or not, we started in our apartment on our dining table. And I remember making phone calls, just trying to get the business up and running, trying to get some sales going. And my baby was then later born, I think about a year and a half later. Even then, it was still a struggle. I actually started off driving OTR. So we bought our first truck for $9,500.
Wow.
Um, so I remember we
That's
barely came up.
all track, right?
A very old truck, but it was a reliable Freightliner FLD. So we got that. I started doing runs back and forth to Idaho to Washington, snow or no snow. I mean, I was at it. I was then dispatching. We eventually got a couple other units added. I got a couple drivers. So our start was very rough. For 2.5, 3 years, we pretty much were just surviving, just trying to get the feel of how can we, get into this again and the rhythm of getting clientele.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, and I can definitely relate. First few years is the hardest. So, tell me about the customers. Have you always been selective with customers, or it came this wisdom later on when you gain more experience in this business?
Well, I think from our prior experience in 2007 and before that, one thing that we realized is pricing is everything. You gotta, especially when you're starting out, you can't just go out there and get any customers. You need to first be able to serve them, religiously, and they
Mm-hmm.
also need to be able to pay you a fair market rate. These days, I see a lot of trucking companies just spinning their wheels, but they're really going backwards. So we were very lucky and blessed at that time to pick up a handful of customers that actually had respect for what we did, and paid us well. So those beginning years, even though they were tough, but we were matched up with the right people that we were able to serve in a right way, and we actually excelled, and our finances did get better.
Yeah, that's amazing. So my next question is kind of related what you shared. What do 90 to 120-day payment terms actually do the business, and what do you think about factoring companies?
I think factoring is not bad, long as they're not robbing you, and long as they're fair. We started off factoring. We actually weaned off of factoring eventually. I think in the beginning, even if you get, some terms that are not favorable, even they're 90 days or 120 days, later, as your assets grow, it does matter. You want lesser terms. But, in the beginning, when you don't have a lot going on, you can factor those invoices, until your finances catch up, until you have the cash flow. Then you can have a year or 2 year plan to slowly wean off of factoring. Long as you have a plan, it's not a bad thing to have.
Yeah. So, how are you personally navigating uncertainty without overreacting? Because in logistics, fuel prices are always changing, tariffs, some regulations coming up. So, tell me how you personally navigate this.
Sorry, I lost you in my ear here.
Yes, I was asking how do you
Oh,
personally navigate the uncertainty of fuel pricing and constant changes, port congestions, and everything that's going on in our industry?
truly, there's no real way to navigate through uncertainty. I think the only way to really, put yourself in a position where you can, weather the storms is when you're making money, you save your money, invest carefully, take your time because this is a pattern of any business. You get your good times, then you get a longer term of bad times. Good times are just small pockets that you have to take advantage of, and that's what I was talking to Chris Jolly about a week ago as well. You just got to be very careful with your finances, and make sure that you have a good moat around you for the bad times when they do arise.
Exactly. So you talk about aggressive patience. How does it look in everyday life and in business? Because I really love this expression. Please explain.
Um, pretty much, as I was mentioning, we're living, in the ebbs and flows of the market. Those peaks and valleys are going to happen. If you can hold on long enough, eventually you do get your turn. But, while you're waiting, you just can't sit around. That's not what I mean. What I
Mm-hmm.
mean is, always pre-plan, be proactive, know what's coming, know how you could be ready for it, what kind of finances you will need when that opportunity does arise. How can you capitalize on that opportunity in the best way possible with the least amount of liquid cash used, and just move forward on those times.
Exactly. So you have built warehousing, drayage, and transportation together, which is definitely not easy. What does your operation actually look like behind the scene?
Well, basically everything that we handle is under my own team. From the time freight touches our ports,
Mm-hmm.
we have our own chassis fleet, our own trucking. Our drivers go out there, and we've had a very good team of people that work with me. They've been with me for years. So they bring the freight over. Our warehouse then receives the freight. We handle. We do pick and pack. We'll store whatever the customer needs. We make it happen for them. Whether it's long term storage, whether it's short term, and then from here we also have a sister brokerage company that also handles their OTR needs. Our trucks go as far as they can go, and the rest of it we offer in brokerage terms. But some customers choose to use their own OTR service, which is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we basically can handle from port to door all aspect of things.
Wow, that's really nice. So you're taking all of the market almost, right?
I'm trying.
Yes,
We all have our difficulties.
of course. So I have been spending a lot of time lately with AI space, especially around logistics, warehouse, and freight brokerage. From your side, where do you see the biggest inefficiencies right now in the operation?
I think we still have a big visibility issue. There's a big gap in, when you're talking brokerage, finding dependable carriers.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a shipment that's moving, through our brokerage, we try to make sure that we pick the same people over and over again. build a relationship, with good carriers that we can have visibility with. And right now, I think AI is a buzzword that's been going around for years now, but I don't think there's truly a good solution out there. There's many solutions, but a truly good solution that is seamless, that can, you know, integrate with your systems without any issues. I really haven't seen something of that kind yet.
Yeah, I hear you. So, if you could automate one part of your operation tomorrow, what would it be?
Uh, could you please repeat that?
Yes, if you could automate one part of your operation tomorrow, what would it be?
Truly, I think the quoting process.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been approached by some companies that's saying, "Hey, automatic quoting, this, that, and the other." There's some. I won't name any names. There's
Yeah,
some good companies out there, but when it comes to transportation, warehousing, and everything in between, it's not a cookie cutter concept. Everything is a different requirement.
yeah,
Everything takes different type of team effort, different labor, especially in our industry.
mm-hmm.
And I know there's systems out there that'll tell you, hey, just upload your rates and then it'll be automated and this, that. I don't think it really truly works for our framework.
I,
Um, so something that can still be automated but can pull from different scenarios, and I think there's more work to be done in quoting.
I absolutely agree. Also, with constant changes, right, the fuel pricing, regulation, it's very difficult to just upload the rate confirmations that you have done before and get the right
Right.
idea. I had similar situation too that they were trying to show their system and quoting the LTL hotshot load, which quoted 2,000 more than I regularly move. So I realized that no, that's not gonna work for us. That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah, we need a human factor in quoting, even if it's an automated system, something that can look at present situations and current market and quote accordingly.
Exactly. So how are you guys currently bringing in business? Is it relationship, outbound, face to face, cold calling? What are you guys working for?
A little bit of everything, but I stick by repeat business. And we've been lucky enough since the beginning. We really had 70% of the same business, same customers that keep coming in. And then we might have 30 to 40% that revolve, differently. We try to go out there and hunt for, they'll come in and they'll work with us for a while, and then we don't see them for a year, and then they come back again. So it's a mix of both, I think. You got to be out there, and you got to talk to your customers face to face. We do it all.
Yes. So what changed about getting customers from when you started comparing to now?
You know, I think every year the loyalty of customers has just gone down and down and down. And when we first started, it was, I would say, easier for a company that's trying to do the right thing to be connected with a company that's trying to get the right service.
Mhm.
As time has progressed, maybe it's the market situations. Obviously, we got the tariff situations now. Anytime the importers are having issues, it's really our issues. It just hasn't reached us yet, right? So when tariffs happen, now it's a price war, price game. People will leave you for a dollar. So I think as time is progressing and as logistics services are becoming globalized,
Mhm.
you got teams in different countries sitting doing your customer service, they're doing your dispatching. So everybody wants to take advantage of that, so it's getting harder and harder to explain to your customer, yes, it's cheaper when you're taking different parts from different places, but once you lose that sector, it's really hard to find a team that you can trust. So it's a hard explanation sometimes.
I agree. So what's one thing about this market right now that people don't want to admit?
About this market right now, I think people see it clearly. Anytime any legitimate business is suffering, we're all suffering together. So there's really nothing to admit or not admit. But one thing that I do openly say, when our market or our industry is oversaturated by people that don't understand our industry, we're going to lose out in the end. And that's what's happening. It's oversaturation. And no one really wants to say that, or maybe it doesn't come to their mind, but I believe it's oversaturation of providers that don't understand the industry.
Yes. So, where do you see most companies struggling when it comes to actually winning business? And I would love to touch base about this oversaturation part again with this question.
I think, yeah, just like you said, we're struggling because there's a lot more options now, and which is great for the customer, but it's actually not great for the customer in the long run. Now, if you think about it, at one point, shippers loved working with asset-based carriers,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which was a great relationship. There was a good and healthy ratio of brokerage versus asset base, which is great. And then over time, because of cost, they started shunning all of the asset-based carriers and started going to the brokerages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that makes sense for you, great. But what happened? I don't know if you've been, noticing in the last 2 to 3 years, we've been seeing bankruptcy after bankruptcy. All these asset-based carriers that have just completely diminished because of this logic of importers or shippers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens is you can't overnight bring those asset carriers back. It took them years to get to where they were. Now they're no longer even existing. And now the shippers want asset carriers again. We
Yeah.
can't just, drum them up, or, from thin air. You had to, everybody plays a part. You can't just go after pricing and destroy a market. There should be a healthy competition, a fair ratio of asset base to non-asset. And I think that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. With just talking about assets, I want to quickly shout out one of my sponsors, Digital Permit Book, which is designed for assets. And it is tied to what we are talking. So Digital Permit Book makes it super easy for tracking companies. Everything is stored digitally, easy to access, easy to send, and it saves a lot of back and forth. So if you are tired of chasing documents, dealing with messy files, definitely check them out. Digital Permit Book. What are you guys using, by the way, for your tracking side, asset side of the business? Do you have any digitalized paperwork, or it is manual binders?
Well, these days, most TMSs and WMS, they you don't have to do any field filling, or it's all automatically captured as soon as you scan it in. So, those kind of capabilities are widely available. So, it's lesser paperwork.
Yeah.
But so I think we're
For
all
the truck drivers, when DOT is stopping you, that's what I was meaning. Do you guys have binders, paper binders, or it is digital?
we have both.
You have both.
So yeah,
That's the
because
right way, actually.
it's because especially with the DOT regulations, even our driver paperwork and everything, FMCSA, God forbid something happens to our system, at least we have backup. We're still old school in our some ways, but yeah, we do have it all digitized as well. So.
Yeah, well, I love that answer. Actually, of course, you always have to have a backup plan, and I think that's very wise of you. So, Sonny, now it's time for a rapid fire question. I'm gonna ask you a few questions and you have to answer quickly, not overthinking. Are you ready?
I'm usually not good at this kind of stuff for sure. I'll give it a shot.
I chose you easy ones. I'm sure you're gonna do amazing. So, first one, cash or volume? Which one are you choosing in this market?
Cash,
One word to describe this freight market.
vulnerable,
Customer or carrier? Who stresses you out more?
carrier,
Which one thing you wish you could automate tomorrow?
quoting.
Yes, I asked that question. Stay small and profitable or scale fast and deal with cows?
Stay small and profitable.
I love it. Thank you, Sonny. It was an amazing insight from you, coming from someone who has done it all from truck driving, dispatching, warehousing, asset side, freight brokerage side. So you have been doing all of it, and I think my audience got a lot of value and learned a lot from you. If you are listening to this and you still um, chasing every load, every customer, every opportunity, it might be the time to step back and ask, are you building a business or just staying busy? That's what I'm gonna take from you and my audience. Thank you so much for listening, and for all of my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Please comment, like, and share with someone who might be also interested, and I will see you in the next one.
Thank you all.